Got this Ford Focus in. It needs a ton of work, but one major issue that was a absolute safety hazard is the front left brake caliper. You can see it's all wet down here. It's leaking. The owner has been driving around like this for a few days, so we're gonna go ahead and get this fixed right away. She did go to AutoZone, and she got a new caliper and brake hose. And here's all the brake fluid. Look at the damage it's caused to the rim, eating up the paint. So everything else the car needs could pretty much wait for us to just order it from Rock Auto, but this right here has to get fixed today. Alright, so I'm all set here. Got the new caliper and bracket on it. We had to reuse the old pads and rotors. It sucks, but that's not what it was here for. As you can see, we've got a brand new brake hose installed as well. Everything's torqued down. I already filled up the brake system and I already bled it out. The pedal feels nice and firm now. I don't see any drips or leaks anywhere, so this thing is good to go. Got this Hyundai Elantra just came in because the owner said whenever she turns the wheel, there's a popping sound or a clunking noise coming from the front left side. So that would be right here. First thing I noticed is, I did experience the noise by the way. First thing I noticed is the front left side of the car is sitting very low compared to the front right side. So I jacked up the car a little bit. I could already see what's going on here. Get the light on for you. And yeah, so it looks like it's going to need a new strut assembly because that spring has broken apparently, and that's what's causing the issue. Every time she turns the wheel, the spring is popping because it's broken. So it's just gonna get 2 front strut assemblies. Another thing she brought up is she noticed that this thing wasn't plugged into something. She doesn't know what it's for, but she noticed that it wasn't plugged in. She recently had her radiator replaced. So this cover right here, this air duct, normally sits in this area. So it looks like whoever replaced the radiator just simply forgot to plug this back in because it goes right here. So I'm assuming her fans weren't working, but she said she hasn't had any overheating or anything like that, so that's good. And it's as simple as plugging it back in, and now we can put the air duct back in place. I'm not going to talk shit or anything like that because things happen. People forget things. That was not a major issue. I could even see myself forgetting something like that. Here goes the broken coil spring. You can see it's so broken that I could actually spin the coil by hand, even though I haven't relieved anything. It's still on the car. Yeah, it's missing like a complete coil or two. So this side of the car sits a little bit lower, and we're just gonna replace both of the front assemblies. You know what? I think the brand that I ordered from Rock Auto is actually the OEM parts. It's a brand called Mondo, or however it's pronounced. But I could open up the box and I noticed that it says made in Korea. Well, Hyundai and Kia is made in Korea. See, it says right there, made in Korea. And looking at the part, this looks like OEM quality. This doesn't look, there is a big difference between how OEM parts look and how aftermarket parts look. This feels nice quality right here. And what I noticed is that for Hyundai and Kia, it's super common to find OEM parts on Rock Auto's website. I don't know, maybe someone can confirm this in the comment section if anyone knows more about this. But let me know if this Mondo brand is OEM supplier for Hyundai, Kia, because this looks really nice quality. It doesn't look like the cheap Chinese crap. One other thing that I noticed is these are the original nuts that came off of the car. They hold on the strut up here. You can see they are black in color. Usually with aftermarket stuff, they're usually like a gold or yellow. You guys know what I'm talking about, that type of crap. And if we come over to our new strut assembly, again, more black nuts. I like black nuts, guys. This right here just looks like quality. We need more black nuts. I like them. So let's go ahead and put this strut on the car, and it should be all set. Everything's looking good. So this side is pretty much all ready to go. Everything fit like a glove. It went in perfectly, no hiccups at all. And while I had the stabilizer link disconnected, I greased up the 2 Zerk fittings, so one on top and one on the bottom. The stabilizer link is not that old. I put it on just a couple of months ago. There is a baby deer who is lost, and it's just running around the neighborhood. Look at him. And he's gone. So this Kia, what is it, Optima? I don't freaking know. Just got dropped off again. It's a few weeks later. and it's back for front pads, rotors, front stabilizer links, and 2 outer tie rods. Let's take it over some bumps and see if we can listen to this. It sounds worse than the first time I was here when I told him it needed these parts. Yeah, that sounds pretty bad. The noise has gotten worse since the last time I was here. So I got the new rotor on it, new pads, new stabilizer link, and new outer tie rod. Now this is actually a OEM tie rod from Rock Auto. The part number and everything matches up to the original piece that came off. It just doesn't have the Hyundai/Kia stamp on it, but it is the same exact OEM part. So that's nice. All right. Hopefully this takes care of all the clunky noise, because this thing sounded pretty bad going over bumps, and I'm not 100% convinced that these were the only issues causing that noise. So let me go wrap it up on the front right side, and I got my fingers crossed that that's everything and that the car sounds nice and quiet when I take it out for a test drive. Alright, so taking it out for a test drive, and I guess I was wrong about there being more issues, because just by replacing the stabilizer links and the outer tie rods, it's a completely different car. In that same patch that was before, that the front end was making all that noise. So let's go past it again. It sounds absolutely quiet in here. Not quiet, but you get what I'm trying to say. It sounds just how the way this car should sound if you're going over bumps. It's crazy. It's like a completely different car. This car just transformed from sounding like a piece of junk that belongs in a junkyard to a car that's relatively brand new and takes bumps nice and smooth. It's crazy how just a few parts can really transform your car. And also, the new brakes feel absolutely fantastic. It doesn't need all that pedal pressure like it did before to stop. The brakes feel really good. So that's it for this one. I'm gonna go ahead and call the owner. She can come pick it up. Next car I got in the garage is this Monte Carlo. It came in because they said the front brakes are dragging, at least the front driver's side is. So yeah, jacked up the car. The front right side spins freely, this side does not, it's locked up, and everything down here very tight. And I noticed someone was recently in here, because these rotors don't look that rusty, so they're not that old, okay? And the pads again look relatively new. They have plenty of life left on them. So someone was in here. A bunch of this stuff is way over torqued, but as soon as I took the wheel off, you could see the boot for the piston is completely destroyed. So this thing is going to get a new caliper as well as a new brake hose. Just how I do things. If I'm replacing a caliper, it's getting a new brake hose. And yeah, and that's unfortunate, because these new brakes are already destroyed. There's like crazy grooves in them from the amount of friction that was here. The owner said that the brakes were smoking and the rotor was turning like red hot. So yeah, that sucks. So we are all done here. As you can see, we got a brand new caliper and bracket and a brand new hose. Now the system has been bled already. I checked for leaks, no leaks at all. Topped off the brake fluid, got inside the vehicle, put pressure on the pedal for a good 20 seconds, good firm pressure, absolutely no leaks at all. The pedal feels great. This thing's ready to go. Now I did go ahead and hit the rotor with like a roll-lock disc, just to try to get off some of that crap that was on the face of the rotor here, since they're not replacing the pads and the rotors. I mean, yeah, the pads and the rotors. And the pads themselves, you could very much tell that these things were overheated, because they're just super like crunchy. You could just tell they were way overheated. But that's not what it's here for. They just need this caliper working so they could actually move the car. And who knows, maybe in the future they'll get the front brakes done. I'm out taking this Monte Carlo for a test drive, and the brakes feel great. The caliper is no longer locking up, so everything's good with that. The owner also wanted me to look at that check engine light. So we only have a single code for system 2 lean. Looking at the fuel trims here, you can see the short term is at about 20%, and I'm just gonna get on the accelerator pedal. See the fuel trims going down. So it has a vacuum leak somewhere. That's what's going on here. So I'm gonna give it back to the owner, let him know that the car has a vacuum leak, and it would have to get diagnosed as far as where the vacuum leak is at. But that's it. The brakes work, so I'm sure she's gonna be happy with it. She could drive it around now. I'm in this Accord. It's a 2003, I believe, and it's here because the brake pedal feels hard like a rock. The first initial press, it feels normal, but after that, the pedal gets very hard, and it's really difficult to stop the car while you're in traffic, and it just becomes borderline dangerous. So it feels like a brake booster that isn't being supplied vacuum. So I disconnected the vacuum hose right here that goes to the brake booster directly. You can see it back there. And I got my vacuum gauge on it. Now what sucks is I was connecting my vacuum gauge and the face just kind of fell down like this, doop, and hit right there, right on plastic, and you know, so nothing in this area, metal, and it broke my freaking glass. Look at this. See the crack in it? That sucks. I mean, all it did was this, like, boom, and that's it. Cracked it. Oh, pisses me off. I mean, it still works, but just kind of effed up my day. You know what I mean? 'Cause now it's gonna be bothering me forever. Anyway, I got the vacuum gauge connected right there to the line. I disconnected from the brake booster. Let's see how much vacuum we are pulling. I'm assuming we are getting our vacuum here. When I disconnected it off of the brake booster, there was some pressure behind it, so I relieved that vacuum once I unplugged it, but it doesn't hurt to check. So with the brake booster disconnected from the vacuum source, now the pedal feels very hard. It's a noticeable difference. So the booster was getting vacuum before. Now I'm going to shut the engine off. See if we're losing any of that vacuum. And it looks to be holding. I don't see anything wrong here, just as I was suspecting. So the next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and smoke test the brake booster. So let's do that. So I got the smoke machine out, and it's super easy to get burned here because you can see I disconnected the brake booster line from this hard line right here, and I put my smoke test on it, right, and it completely dropped, indicating there's no leak. And you would think, oh, the brake booster is fine, no leak, right? What you don't understand is I went ahead and disconnected this end again from the brake booster, and we have absolutely no smoke coming out of here. So there's some sort of a check valve in this hose right here, and checking right here with your smoke test is not adequate, because all you're really doing is checking this hose for a leak. You're not really checking the brake booster. In this case, in order to check the brake booster, we have to put our smoke machine directly on the brake booster back here. Okay, so I'm connected directly to the brake booster. You get to see I'm using a small hose as an extension, and it's been sitting under for like a minute or two. And although that float looks like it's all the way at the bottom and you would think that there's no leak, that's not true. There is a leak here. It's a very small one, because that float can go a little bit lower, and I'm going to show you that. Let's go ahead and disconnect this, and I'm just going to plug it off with my finger. Look how low that flow actually goes when there's really no leak. Okay, so that thing is indicating a leak. Now I checked out here with my light. I'll plug this back in right here. Make sure we got a good seal. And once again, look at it. Okay, so you can tell the float isn't all the way at the bottom. And I looked around here with the light. I don't see any smoke. But if we come inside the car, I took off the panels from underneath the footwell area right here, and let me turn on this light, see if this helps. You see the smoke? Alright, so I hope that is showing up. I think it is, and that's where our leak is at, so it needs a brake booster. We have a new master cylinder here and a new brake booster, just because I wasn't sure what was wrong. I bought both of them from AutoZone, but it looks like we're only going to be changing out the brake booster on this one. We're going to try to leave the original master cylinder on this car. I grabbed a piece of packing tape, and I just put it over the crack right here, and I cut the edges with a blade. It's not perfect, but the main thing is sometimes I run my hand across the glass when I'm grabbing it, and without the packing tape you could definitely feel that edge. I don't want it to slice my finger open one day. The packing tape works pretty well. You could barely even notice that it's there. That sucks. It's pretty much a new tool. I think this is like the second or third time I use it. And it's not even like I dropped it on the floor and I'm like, yeah, I can understand that. No, it just like literally just doop, and it broke. That's horse shit. So there goes our new part. It's the very last part. I wanted to smoke test it before we put it on the car just to verify we don't have any leaks. But I completely overlooked where the master cylinder goes and I have nothing to kind of plug this off right here. You know what, let me look around in my garage. Maybe I do have something. So no matter what I try, what plug to put in here, it's still, the pressure of it overcomes whatever you put right here and it still ends up leaking. So there's no way I could really test this. We're just gonna have to say 3 Hail Marys, put it on the car and hope that it works. So to get this brace out, you gotta remove all the bolts obviously, and then there's one down here, but it's the stud and the nuts on top. So initially I was like, oh crap, I gotta take all of this off. So I started pulling off the wipers, as you could see. And then right before I started actually removing this piece, I noticed that there's a little panel right here that comes off. So you look inside of there and there goes the 2 nuts that I have to remove in order to get this brace out of here. I got the master cylinder off of the car and I want to take a good look at it because if it was leaking from back here, then it's getting replaced. But now that it's off of the car, all I see is like dried up grease, but I don't see it wet or moist or anything back here. So I think we're gonna end up reusing this master cylinder. Looks pretty good. No signs of it leaking back here. We'll save the money on it. Plus, this is a OEM part, whereas the one from AutoZone is remanufactured. So I got more faith in this part right here. Alright, so it's getting there. As you can see, I got it unbolted from inside the car and I managed to pull out the booster this much. It looks like it's gonna come out. Just gotta move a few more things over to the side. So here's the old brake booster. It's off the car, as you can see. I transferred over the gasket and I transferred over this small piece that's gonna attach to the brake pedal inside the car. Inside the car, I got everything ready to go. You can see I got the 4 bolts holding the brake booster in place. Everything's torqued down. You got the pin that goes right here in the brake pedal and the cotter pin on this side. So everything is set inside of here. Now really it's just time to go ahead and put the master cylinder back on it on this side. But what I'm going to do first is throw out all of the brake fluid that's sitting inside of this reservoir right here. We'll put brand new brake fluid in. Of course we have to bleed out the system, but let's chuck it in the parts washer and give this old master cylinder some new life. So here's what the part looks like before we go ahead and clean it up. I put the cap back on it so we don't get any of this solution inside of here. I don't want to go through the trouble of having to get out whatever chemical gets inside of there. So we're just going to leave the brake fluid inside of there. So here goes the part right here, all cleaned up. Everything looks really good. I dried it off. I made sure to leave the cap on it so we don't get any contamination inside of here with the brake fluid, as well as the 2 ports right here. I made sure to plug them off so we don't get anything inside of them. The cleaning looks pretty good. I'm happy with it, and I know the owner is gonna open the hood and look at it. He's going to look at the new brake booster and he's going to look at the master. So it'll be real nice to have this all cleaned up for him, whether he looks at it here or when he gets home. I know he's gonna open the hood. So I was able to pull the car out of the garage. I pretty much got everything underneath the hood all put back together, and I used my power bleeder to bleed out the brakes, and all I did was bleed at the master cylinder. I did not have to bleed at the calipers, and the brake pedal feels absolutely fantastic. So I've been driving this Accord around for about 10 minutes now, and the problem that we had before is absolutely gone. The pedal feels great. It's nice and consistent. There's no there's no pedal getting hard after 1 or 2 pumps. It feels consistent no matter how many times you pump the brake pedal. So that's good. That's a fix. I'm glad to see that it's working how it should. Like I said earlier, the brakes on this car have always been very sensitive. So when something wasn't right, it did not take long for the owner to realize it, as well as myself. I could tell immediately that something wasn't right here because I know how sensitive the brakes have always been on this car. And it's back to its old ways. We need more black nuts. I like them.